Listen, Bob.
Alright, YouTube, sit down. Let's have a talk. Now, typically I find it unnecessary to give this type of a preamble, especially at this point in my YouTube career, but because the title of this video is somewhat controversial, I feel it must be stated. The issue at hand is not the race of the character. It's about storytelling and character origin and retconning character origin. Please understand that, because I don't want to see any you're racist or you're white or you're this or you're that in the comment section. And with that, let's dig into this. Jackson Hayes, in his September 12th, 2019 article on Full Circle Cinema, posted, Marvel Studios considering making Professor X and Magneto POC an X-Men reboot. And in case you're under a rock, POC means people of color. Now, I'm not going to read you the entire thing. I'm going to leave you the link in the description below, and you can go read that article and make up your own mind about it. I'm not here to make up your mind for you. I'm just here to give you my perspective. Now, I don't know if you noticed, I'm a bit of an X-Men fan. I've been an X-Men fan since I was a small boy. I read comic books, watched the classic cartoon series, was entertained to some degree by the mainstream X-Men movies, but Wolverine has always been my favorite X-Men and favorite superhero, period. And because Wolverine's skeleton is covered by the exotic metal adamantium, Magneto is a particularly formidable foe. So over the years I have respect for that. Indeed, in the Fatal Attractions comic series, which bounce back and forth between X-Men and Wolverine, Logan very unwisely launches himself in a full frontal attack at Magneto. Magneto got so fed up with his Canadian ass that he ripped the adamantium off his very bones, which caused him a lot of pain, immediately put him unconscious, and he actually started reverting into a weird sort of atavistic animal state. Now, that's neither here nor there as it pertains to this argument. However, Magneto has been with X-Men since its very debut, way back in September 1963. Magneto was created by none other than Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Might as well be the equivalent of Marvel's John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Over the course of many years, we discover that Magneto, who was born a Jew named Erich Lenscher in Nazi Germany, was sent to Auschwitz, which was a real place. They actually killed Jews and burned their bodies there. The first X-Men movie was particularly illustrative of this fact, because they showed him being ripped out of his mother's arms, and she's being walked into one of the furnaces. And of course, what are you going to do when you're a boy and they're tearing your mom from you? You're going to scream and stretch out your hand. But what these Nazi assholes didn't realize was that Erich Lenscher was one of the first mutants. And he put out his hand and pulled himself towards the Iron Gate. And then it took 4 or 5 Nazis to try to restrain the kid. And he pulls the gate and physically disfigures it. And it took a rifle butt to the head and knocking him out before the gate stopped twisting. Now, what does this do to a young psychology? First, they tried to make him a weapon, as Nazis are wont to do. But as Magneto matured, he came to believe that mutants are either going to be exploited for their power by the government or killed by governments who fear them. Now, at some point, he met Charles Xavier, and they were friends. They had different philosophies, but it didn't become violent until many years later. Parting of ways was bitter and violent, but even as adversaries, Charles and Magneto had high respect for one another. Magneto had a hand in building Cerebro, the supercomputer that augments Charles Xavier's considerable psychic skills. In so doing, also designed a helmet that was designed to block Charles's mental probes and attacks. Now, Chris Claremont, the X-Men's most prolific and imaginative writer, admits that the character of Magneto was built on a philosophy similar to Malcolm X's early philosophies, and that Charles Xavier, contrastly, was modeled after Martin Luther King Jr. One was openly embraceful of militant tactics in order to achieve change and revolution, while the other was more devoted to peaceful means. Going straight to the horse's mouth, here's what Stan Lee had to say about Magneto. Do not think of Magneto as a bad guy. He just wanted to strike back at the people who were so bigoted and racist. He was trying to defend the mutants, and because society was not treating them fairly, he was going to teach society a lesson. He was a danger, of course, but I never thought of him as a villain. So what's the big problem here? None other than Denzel Washington has been proposed to be the new Black Magneto. Especially if someone like, say, Lawrence Fishburne was Black Charles Xavier, given their acting prowess and their history. Lawrence Fishburne was Morpheus. And Denzel Washington has played more dark characters with murderous tendencies than he has not. The problem here is social engineering, retconning a character, and forcing bizarre product into our faces, which radically alters the established lore. But a mortal coil, you'd say. I've already done that with Nick Fury. Samuel L. Jackson played him brilliantly. Probably one of his best roles ever. And yeah, that's an alright argument. Yeah, for 21 and a half movies, he played Nick Fury very well. Despite in the comic books, Nick Fury being a tow-headed white man. Wolverine even killed Nick Fury once. But what was the ultimate fate of Sam Jackson's Nick Fury? He was cucked out by Brie Larson, mutilated by a flarekin, which he continued to baby even after his eye was taken, and then kind of fucking up some of the Avengers continuity in the process. Problem here is that in Marvel pulp comics, there is a precedent for this kind of thing. We regularly see characters being gender and race swapped, while their male counterparts are put in humiliating positions, completely robbing them of their dignity or the purpose of their crusade. But the best way to make this point is to turn it on its head, okay? Yeah, let's race swap Charles and Eric, okay? Let's race swap the Juggernaut, bitch. He can be played by Gabriel Iglesias, because he's not fat, he's fluffy. Let's race swap the Sentinels, who can be played by Dot Matrix from Spaceballs. And let's race swap Captain Marvel, who was famously drained of her powers by Rogue. He can be played by supermodel Iman, famous from James Bond movies. Actually, she'd make a damn good Storm. But do you see the ridiculousness of this setup, this type of thinking? It's not about bringing diversity or POC into the X-Men universe. The X-Men were always diverse. They were the ultimate diversity. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Look at people like the Beast. Look at people like Nightcrawler. They're not even black or white. They're blue. And they have animalistic appearances, despite one being incredibly intelligent, genius scientist and doctor, and the other being a devout man of faith, despite looking like what some people would consider a demon. Not only that, but we have characters like the Silver Samurai from Japan. Storm was the fucking queen of Wakanda. Jubilee and her sparkly ass was Chinese. The Banshee was Irish. And Magneto was German. The entire point of X-Men was harmonious existence. The strength of will, the mastering of your abilities, and the type of world which we could create. So when Kevin Feige says, "So the notion of representation on screen In front of and behind the camera, somebody asked me once. So is Black Panther a one-off? I said, no, it's not a one-off. This is the future. This is the way the world is, and the way, certainly, our studio is going to be run going forward, because it brings about better stories. The more diverse the group of people making the movie is, the better the stories. Okay, Kevin Feige, the issues that you seek to address with X-Men were addressed 50 years ago. You just haven't read your source material. While there are certainly many black men in Germany now, in the era of Kristallnacht, I'm sorry, Eric Lyncher would have been killed at birth.
So, there you have it. My thoughts on Black Magneto. My name's Immortal Coil. Like, share, subscribe, drop me a comment. Let me know what you want to see on future editions. Savage Spirituality. Check out my bros in the Fandom Collective. We're a group of channels who would like to help you get subs, you get likes, you get traction. And together, we can turn around the shit show that counts as entertainment in 2019. And remember, the magnetic poles of Earth occasionally realign.
But I'm the juggernaut.